Her Expat Life community, welcome back to another episode. Our mission is simple. We aspire to advance and empower the lives of women who live and work abroad. We provide services to female expats and digital nomads who are entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals, and investors who desire to advance their global lifestyle. And on this YouTube channel, we want to bring you content to make that possible. So we interview a range of guests on a range of topics to help you get educated, and get inspired to live your global life. Today, we are very excited to be speaking to someone who I love chatting to, someone who is very wise, very knowledgeable. Her name is Esther van Toledo, and she is very passionate about leadership, and she is on a mission to bring positive changes to the business world. She's an experienced leadership coach with over 16 years of dedication to guiding CEOs, directors, and managers towards extraordinary leadership by integrating the intelligence of the heart. So Esther has worked with over 5,000 individuals and 200 companies like corporate giants Coca-Cola and Rabobank, as well as family-owned businesses and creative entrepreneurs. She helps people let go of their traumas, develop emotional intelligence, and deepen their connections to unlock creative powers. So, very, very excited to welcome her to our community today. Esther, thank you for joining us.
And thank you for inviting me. I am extremely excited and happy. I hope these vibes go off into the air to anybody who's listening and watching. And very excited about what we're going to talk. I prepared some stuff, so we're going to go through some tools and tips and tricks. Let's set the intention to all the powerful ladies out there and the courageous entrepreneurs that we will share things today that will ignite your spark and make sure that that spark turns into a wildfire and
Love
that it
that.
lifts you off into your next level of leadership. And that's what I hope we will do today.
I love it. And this is why I love you, Esther. We're 2 minutes in and you've already got me excited about life.
Oh, isn't that great? I always love chatting with you. So bring me the first question. Come on, let's
Let's
go.
go. Okay. So, Esther, you are a leadership coach with over a decade of experience, but your journey started in the corporate world working for a giant multinational. Tell us about your origin story and how you found yourself in the world of coaching.
Well, we actually have to go way back, and that's when everybody was immersed in their student life. Around the age of 19, I was actually arranging transports under the hot Singapore sun.
Wow.
And I always loved to travel and the adventure, and that led me on to when I was 21, I was actually managing 30 people in Bangladesh, arranging transports on a project. And from there, I went into the sales of transport, and from there, I went into IT consultancy, management consultancy, and that brought me to the cutthroat world of management consultancy because it was cutthroat. I remember that we had to do things like for Citibank Turkey. I would arrive and I was the project lead, and 5 people would come flying in all over the world that I didn't know. And we would have 3 weeks to set up the audit and audit the whole company top down in 3 weeks with all the processes, all the strategy, and all the recommendations for it. I mean, talking about leadership and people skills, I mean, they were amped up at that moment, but I really enjoyed it. And then I finally got an offer for a sponsorship. My company offered a sponsorship to do my MBA. I did it, got the MBA degree, and I thought my life can finally begin. And I remember then I was headhunted by Coca-Cola. I was thrilled. A big
Mm.
brand like Coca-Cola wanted me. Yes, let's go. So first I came in as a business manager because I came from the IT, but soon enough, my boss came to me and said, Esther, I think you should go into sales. And I said, well, I've been in sales before, so yeah, let's give it a try. I was given all kinds of tests. You know those tests, the disc
Mhm.
analysis, Enneagram, talent test, anything red, green, yellow, and a spider web or something. You know those ones. So I got them all. And then they said, oh, yeah. It's pretty clear from the test. You should be in sales because you're more red than blue. You're more a boss than a helper. So we'll get you well on your way, Esther. Here's a new training program for you, a personal development plan, and you'll go into sales and marketing and be responsible for hospitality channel and travel. So I did. So I was cruising away in my big lease car, going to VIP parties, hanging out with the crew of Schiphol Airport, Hilton, Marriott, having about 60 or 70 hours work week, big brand behind you. I mean, I thought I was killing it. I thought I had arrived. This is not going to end well. You know that, right?
Yeah.
So soon enough, I could feel myself getting more angry easily. But yeah, that's just stress. Sleeping more in the weekends, calling off parties more. But still, I thought it was fine. If people would ask me, how are you doing? I would say busy, but I'm doing well. And that's kind of, that's what we do in society, right? We just say, how are
Mm.
you? Busy. If you're not busy, you're socially awkward, right?
Yeah.
So there was no alarm bell ringing there. It was just like, oh, she's busy, but she's doing well. Until one day, and here we go, I had a burnout, and it came to me like a blackout in the car. It was really scary. I had no clue where I was for an hour and a half, complete blackout.
Wow.
And that's the first time that you feel like you're completely out of control of your body and completely out of control of your mind. And it was scary. I remember I was then getting really, really tired. I called the director. We were supposed to have a meeting. I said, I am very, very tired. I'm on my way. I already lost an hour and a half. I know you're in the next meeting. I'm going to see you on Monday. It was a Friday. So I came back on Monday, slept the whole weekend, like really just opening up the fridge every few hours and then going back to sleep. That was kind of my weekend. And on Monday, he came to my desk and he says, how are you doing? And at that point, I was pretty stressed out, apparently, because I didn't feel it. And that's the scary part. I didn't feel it.
Mm.
But when he asked me, a tear came out of my eye over my cheek. And he says, I see what the problem is. You come to my office now, and I believe you have a burnout. You're going to HR. That was, of course, like a big ego thing because I was like, "Who do you know who I am? I am the high potential. I am the one that's breaking all the records." It's always happening to the strong ones. Always. This is
Yeah.
what I learned later. They just keep going. And then I had to go in and find out where this burnout come from because it was actually building up already. I don't think it's the fault of Coca-Cola at all. It was just building up in my body already. But it just came out at Coca-Cola.
Mm.
And one of the things that I want people to know, because it's very popular nowadays, is to do all these tests, right? And then to think you're on your path. Like, I
Mm.
know my talents, I know my capacities, I know my dreams, I know my goals. Well, that's not enough. That's what I found. You're missing a very crucial part that nobody asked me. It's telling it here so that everybody who's listening is checking in with me. Nobody asked me, what gives you energy, Esther? What drives you? What makes your heart beat faster? What you do not have a logical reason for, but you just love doing? A question that a coach asked me during the burnout was a very good question. She says, Esther, what can you do all day without getting paid for and without getting tired? I
Mm.
remember I laughed in her face and I said, that's easy. Drinking coffee and talking about life. I said, but you can't make money with that. Look what I do.
Yes, we can. Mm-hmm.
So that's just one part of the burnout is that we really have to listen. So just here, some tips and tricks is check your energy in the next 2 weeks. Check your energy before you do something. Like, are you looking forward to do something? That's a
Mm.
check. Do you like it when you're doing it? That's the second check. And the third check is, how do you feel afterwards? All three of them have to be in the green.
Mm.
If I would have had such simple check-in questions with myself at the time I was working for Coca-Cola, I would probably have left sooner because I would have known, like, okay, this client, oh, it's dreadful. I'm going to that meeting going like, I'm going to be beaten up. It's going to be awful. During the meeting, I am beaten up. I don't know what to say. I'm stressed out of my head. Leaving the meeting, I'm worn out. I have to go to another meeting. Oh, how am I going to survive this? Does any of that
Mm.
ring a bell with you?
Many, many bells.
Many, many
Many,
bells. Good.
many, many, many bells. Many.
So this is the one thing. The other thing, and that's where we're going into, and you already put that in your introduction, is this: there was some unresolved trauma within me that was blocking my success, my real success. And what do I
Mm.
mean by real success? In society and in business, we always think like willpower is everything. Just put your mind to it. Ignore your body signals. We have to go, 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 gung ho. If you're sick, no, 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 you're not staying home. You're showing real loyalty to the company if you just show up. You have an icky feeling about this final finance proposition? Don't share it. It's not rational.
Mm.
And we're missing a lot of intelligence by missing out on the heart's intelligence. And the unresolved trauma, in my case, made me the famous illness we have in business, perfectionism.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't know if you have you battled perfectionism?
Yes. Yes.
Let's see
It's
if
horrible.
any of this resonates. For instance, for me, my perfectionism came from my dad leaving at the age of 7, leaving my mom alone. And then
Mm.
there was this gossiping in the village. I was living in a village, so the gossip went on, and then
Mm.
like, oh, they're not gonna grow up well. They're gonna end up in the gutter because they are now with divorced parents. And my sister was not doing really well at school, so I thought the pressure's on me. I'll show them.
Yeah.
And that was like the birthplace of my burnout. I'll show them something external. So
Wow.
anything that any boss would tell me, like, hey, we have an extra project, a special project, not part of your function, you know, those things.
I'll
Those
do
are,
it.
yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. When I had my burnout, people were saying, like, do you know that only 1/3 of your portfolio got somebody else in a burnout?
Mm.
And then I was like, oh, so nobody checked if this was a capacity. No, you just got everything.
Mm.
I was like, oh. And that's the thing I
Mm.
learned, is to be mutual dependent. Your boss needs to know if you can take more. There is no pride in being not dependent on your boss and being like the independent woman. I can do it all by
Yeah.
myself. It's
Yeah.
very dangerous, and it's not bringing in the connection. And connection is where the super performance comes from. But we'll talk about that
Hmm.
later. So
Well,
two
act
insights. One is the energy, and the other one is unresolved trauma. Yeah,
well,
hit
this
me
leads
up.
me perfectly to my next question for you, Esther, which is your approach, right? So you have developed your unique leadership of the heart method, which you have described as an 8-step leadership transformation program rooted in neurobiology, psychosomatics, and heart math, which provides a fresh perspective on leadership, which is quite far from the conventional and traditional approaches that are out there. Talk to us a little bit about your methodology and how it's different.
Well, we all know that our upbringing has an effect on our work and life, right? So, but the thing is, how do we make sure that that effect is a positive effect and not a negative effect? And we have to be real. We all have some unresolved trauma and triggers. If not, please come sit next to me for an hour and a half and I'll make sure. Because I haven't met anyone in the last 17 years already that doesn't have anything. And there's no shame in it. Actually,
Mm.
I'm not allowed to say it, and I'll say it very whispering. I think good leaders come from trauma.
Mm,
Don't tell anybody. The leaders that haven't gone through anything are
I
usually
agree.
very weak. I'm sorry to say it. So
I
if you
agree.
have survived something, you have a certain fuck off attitude, you have a certain drive, you have a certain fire, you have like, that is not going to happen to me again. So I'm
Mm,
pushing through and I know I'm on the right path. You cannot
mm,
tell me differently. And you
mhm.
need to be a little bit of stubbornness if you want to lead. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a CEO, doesn't matter. You need to be fulfilled with your vision and nobody else sees it. So
Mhm.
you need to be okay with that nobody agrees with you, but you're
Resilient.
strong enough. Yeah, but you're strong enough to hold the fire and the flame.
Mm,
And then after 3 years, they said, that was a very good idea. So with traditional coaching, you usually talk about your problems or your emotion back and forth, and you try to find any kind of solution, right? But leadership of the heart work completely different. We're working at the level of the unconscious behavior because that's where the root cause is. Because if it wasn't in your unconscious, you could have changed it overnight.
mm,
If it was in your conscious part of your thinking, it would just be, don't get angry in the next meeting. And then you go like, well, that's a very good idea. Let me just not do that.
yeah.
But because it's in your unconscious behavior, you know, you get this one remark that triggers you and you're on your emotion and you're, before you know it, you're saying things that you regret after. Leadership of the heart prevents that. Because from neurobiology, which is basically saying that anything that happened in your past leaves a signature in your body. And it also leaves a trigger for a stress response, which we call fight and flight. Are you familiar with that? Fight and flight
Mhm.
response? Yeah. So whenever you are in that meeting and somebody says something and it's triggering you, you go into a fight and flight response. When you
Mhm.
go in that response, hormones are made that are not helping the situation. Basically, you're on drugs, and the drugs are called cortisol and adrenaline.
Mm.
And adrenaline, what that does, it gets your heartbeat up and it gets all your energy focused on your muscles. Because basically, your reptile brain is still thinking you need to run or fight.
Mhm.
And so your everything needs to go to your muscles. Nothing is going to your digestion system. Nothing is going to your hormonal system. That's why usually when you have a chronic stress, you age
Mm.
quickly
Yeah.
because the body is still wanting to get quick sugar. That's also why you get sugar cravings when you're in stress, because it wants
Mm.
to have quick energy, and that's sugar and not fat. So that's why it's asking for sugar.
Mhm.
So when you're in that state, your body is in a fight or flight mode, your adrenaline is up, your cortisol is up as well. And cortisol, what it does, it makes you not feel physically
Mm.
and emotionally. So when you were battling that saber-toothed tiger, we were in the ancient times, and that tiger scratches you, you shouldn't go, ah, I can't. You should not feel because you're fighting for your life.
Mm.
So the body has done this amazing job that you won't feel it. Remember that you fall off your bike and for the first few seconds, you don't feel anything. It
Yeah,
comes a
you're
little bit out.
okay.
It's the cortisol working. In the emotional world, it's working exactly the same. So it's basically making you not feel the other person. Not at
Mm.
all. That's why we are able to say the most damaging things when we're in that response.
Hmm.
So, number one tip, here it goes, that you can have to stop those triggers is called soda. I don't know. I've been brought up with soda. Whenever you had an inflammation on your toe, whatever your mom said, put your toe in water
Uh,
and soda and nah. So it takes away the pain, right? Takes away the inflammation.
mm.
And it's the same for triggers. So the inflammation is gone by remembering the acronym SODA, which means stop, stop
Mhm.
whatever you're doing. Because whatever you're saying when you're in this mode will just get you into trouble. So don't. Or you have to repair a lot.
Mhm.
Observe what's happening within me, what's going on within me, and what's going on in the other person.
Mhm.
Distance yourself from that person or from that email, even. I mean, literally, just pull away your chair from the laptop if you just had this incredibly
Mm.
mean email sent to you. In a phone call, say, hey, somebody's knocking at my door, I need to go. In a meeting, I don't care, say something like, I need to poop. So just go. Just get out of this
Get
black
out of the
cloud.
situation.
Get out of it because you're not doing yourself a service, neither the other person. So that's
Mm.
distance. And the last one, air, breathe. There's
Mm.
some great breathing techniques out there that you can just Google. One of the most simple ones I give to my clients is 4x4, which basically
Mhm.
means 4 seconds breathing in, 4 seconds holding your breath, 4 seconds breathing out, and four
Mm.
seconds not breathing in, not breathing out, complete silence, and then breathe
Mm.
in. And it brings down your heart rate, and it's slowly, because your heart rate is going down, your adrenaline and cortisol levels will go down. Once your adrenaline and cortisol levels are down, you're getting back in what do I call a heart coherent state. And that's why I call it leadership of the heart. The heart is way more powerful than the brain.
Mm.
When you're in that state, you can think of an adequate response. When you're in your
Mm.
fight and flight state, you can't. So
Mm.
basically, we're getting these traumas out of the way because that's when the intelligence of the heart can be heard.
Mm.
But first, we need to clean up house, and then you
Mm.
can hear your heart. Because there's a lot of people going to any kind of intuition classes. It really is a waste of your investment
Mm.
because you can't hear it if you're full of trauma. Because trauma colors your vision.
Mm.
Because of my father not being there, I had a projection of a boss, my boss, always to be weak and not there for me.
Mm.
As soon as I resolved my trauma, I actually became friends with my director. and he was in one of my keynote speeches. He was in the audience, and I saw him just before, and then I said, "I'm going to mention you because now you're here, so I can tell you." Because at first we were fighting all the time, or having conflicts, or I would call him out in meetings, like, "That's not
Yeah.
really true, is it? It's like blah 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 blah. And what you should do is to be a leader and stand up for your people who are blah blah blah." Basically, I was telling him what I wanted to tell my dad. And this is happening a lot in business. I think
Mm.
80% of the business problems come from unresolved trauma that's in the undercurrent. And that's the
Wow.
real reason why change is not happening or plans are not succeeding.
So, Esther, on this note, let's talk a little bit more about the heart because when you talk business, the heart is not the first thing that pops to mind at all in a conventional sense. So, your
No.
program is focused on connecting our heart with its intuitive guidance, which you've discussed, but this is not at all the narrative that circulates the cutthroat world of business. Why do you think we're conditioned to believe that the heart has no place in the boardroom?
Well, it starts in the school system already. We are unlearned to listen to our feelings and our intuition. I mean, you have to basically learn what's in the book, don't go beyond the book. Do not ask many questions because you will be seen as stubborn or obnoxious. Like, here she goes again, asking questions. I remember I was, sent out of class because I said, "So, but how do we know that this vase is 1,000 years old?" I was
Fair
really
question.
interested.
Yeah.
Esther, out. And I'm like, I'm asking a question, and it's like, you just have to learn that the vase is 1,000 years old, and it came from the
Mm,
Romans, and that's it.
mm,
That's all you need to know. So you're already limited and blocked inside this system where you can only do what's in the book, and if you repeat what's in the book and what the teacher says, yeah, you get an A grade, and then apparently you're doing something good.
mm,
But we're missing out on a lot, and also missing out on what's really going on. And that's why now, when we look at business leaders, I have a lot to do because they have unlearned it. But thank God,
mm,
everybody still has it. Once they get into the habit of how to tune in, they go way faster. I mean, I
mm,
have companies and entrepreneurs who make like 3 to 4 times the profit of the market average. So it's not whooshy whooshy, it's the
mm,
heart that actually brings you the profit, honey. And you
mm,
can still make it if you just follow the rationale, not against it. I will just tell you that the route you will choose, head or heart, will determine on how the process will be. So if you do it from
mm,
your head, it will have a lot of struggle, a lot of gung
mm,
ho approach, a lot of willpower. It will be exhausting. And then you will end up at the same line of the marathon we're running as where people who are leading from their hearts will come. But they, on the road, have seen the flowers, loved their
mm,
family, enjoyed magical moments with partners that they teamed up with.
mm. And
That's
still have the energy to keep going because they're not
and it's
really,
exactly when they hit
yeah,
that final line, they would still have energy to, I don't know, have a drink with their friends. And the ones who
yeah.
have done it from mostly their head is like they're burned out. They're like, I'm exhausted. I need sleep.
Mhm.
It's basically also the scary thing that when you see people retire, that you're holding your heart for that person because you think he's gonna, hmm? Well, then
Yeah,
you know pretty sure that he's been doing it from a lot of fighting. And I'm not saying
yeah,
that doing from the heart is easy peasy and you'll always be joyful. No, because you will
mm,
have fights in a different part. The part you will have your fights with is with your inner self. Why?
yeah. Because, yeah, I guess it leads well into my next question of like, we're kind of taught that your personal lives and what's going on internally should not come with you to the workplace. That, like, leave your personal stuff at home, leave all of that at home. And when you come to work, you're there for work. And there shouldn't be this, my internal conflict, my internal, like, it's almost we're taught to separate these two entities. And your work is saying, no, like, that's actually not possible. So, again, why do you think we've taken this approach as a society? And why do you think it's harmful to believe that there is a separate you for work and the rest of your life?
I think it's a coping mechanism against
Mm,
the pressure and perfectionism culture that we're having. So that's why people are actually, they're never protecting their work, they're protecting their private environment.
Mm.
So, and if you look at it, the internal conflicts, can you ever not bring them to work? I mean, let's be really,
No,
really honest.
it's
No,
impossible.
it's
No.
impossible. And the ones who try, we know them.
Mm.
They have short fuses. Because it's like if you cannot be your true self, it looks like you're holding up a beach ball underneath the water. It takes a lot of
Mm.
tension to keep it down and to not be your true self. I mean, do you know the muscle test? Have you ever heard of it where you put out your arm? Well, you put out
No.
your arm and then they discover, for instance, allergies, but you could also simply do it with decision making. Like, does this suit
Okay.
me? Does it not suit me? How it starts is you start with, is my name Esther? And then somebody checks your arm. And usually it's very strong because you're in your truth.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, my name is Tina, somebody can just easily put your arm down. So you can do
Oh.
this with a friend, with a partner, with a colleague, even. And then you can check if something is aligned with you. So, what it tells you, like I said, if you are in your truth, if you are in your authentic self, there is nothing more powerful than that. You are
Mm.
always weaker if you just use your rationale, always, and way more emotional. That's the fun part. Why? Because you're suppressing feelings. That means
Mm.
your fuse is short. It's a running time bomb.
Mm.
I had a C-level leader recently, and she tried to put like a Berlin Wall between her private life and her work life. And I looked at it and it was like completely different, 180 degrees. It's like in her work, she was the tough cookie, the critical
Mm.
thinker, the why are we doing this and blah, 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 and we should do it like this. And then I learned in her private life, she was taking care of pets. She was actually spiritual and she was
Mm.
also a very creative photographer.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, why are you not bringing this into the workplace? I mean,
Mm.
you would feel so much better because this was the fun part. This is how you see that unresolved trauma comes back into the workplace. She
Mm.
had feelings of not really fitting in with the board members. And I was examining that. And then I said, what if you bring in more of your feeling side and share with people that you're also a photographer? Maybe share some of your beautiful pictures or tell them what you do in your free time with the pets, etc. And as more as she did that, she was scared shitless because it meant to be vulnerable. This vulnerability brings you one of the most important traits to be as a leader or entrepreneur. It brings you connection because vulnerability starts building trust. If there's trust, there is a connection. If there is a connection, people will follow you.
Mm.
It's not because we think you have the best idea. If we're really honest, we follow people we like
Yeah. And trust.
and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so she did that. And then she had less and less conflicts with her board members because she opened up. So you can see that the internal conflict of splitting off these worlds was
Yeah.
splitting off the connection with other people. As soon as she connected with herself, she connected with others. And that's my
Mm.
first power in Leadership of the Heart program that I teach is first we create your connection power. And that is by resolving the trauma so that you are truly connected with your authentic self. And
Mm.
then you can connect with others. And from that
Mm.
base, you'll be more clear as a leader because we know who you are, what your values are, what your passion is, what your drives are. And we also know your weaknesses. We also know your triggers, and that makes you human. And because you're human, I am allowed to be human. And because I'm allowed to be human, I will show up as my most true and authentic self and where I have my full potential on the line in this job. You'll get the best out of
Mm.
people that way.
Absolutely. So, our audience is predominantly female. We create content for females in particular. And I'd love to know, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges that you see females in particular having to work through in the corporate world or in their careers? What are the common things that keep coming up?
One of the things I see, and I think it's pretty known, is that we act like men. And it's
Mm.
really where we are weak. If you look at nature, The one that survives is the one that uses all their own strength. If
Mm.
you are trying to use somebody else's strength, like typical male strength, and there are, because I'm not against any male leadership or male energy based leadership, we really need that. It's laser focused, it's cutthroat, you need that. But it also needs the feminine touch. It also needs to go and sit like, okay, finances are correct, the Excel spreadsheet is working, and how do we feel about this investment? I had a CFO, a lady who dared to do this. And guess what? All the men, because she was leading men, said, "Oh, I'm so happy you said this. I had a gut feeling as well, but I didn't dare to say it because the figures end up and the data match, and there's no
Oh, wow.
rational reason." I see two things always happening. They're not
Mm.
expressing
Mm.
enough, not
Mm.
their needs, not their intuition, not their feelings, and they're defending. And that's a weak point. It's like, don't defend. I
Mm.
recently helped a woman to become a CEO, basically an entrepreneur in a big family company. She was the director within a bigger company, and she had to negotiate about her shares in the company. And
Mm.
she was going at it from, David Goliath attitude. And I said, no, it's king to king. And she goes like, what?
Mm.
And I said, meet him as king to king. A king doesn't say, the other king always says something like, oh, you have that land, I want a piece of it. Okay. And then if you are like very scared, you go like, no, I don't want you to take that piece of land. I am worthy of so much more. No, you say, oh, that's interesting. I actually want a piece of your land, and that's that one. Because you're in your
Mm.
power.
Mm.
And that made her accept not 25% of the shares, but 50%, and she is well off now. So it's
Mm.
really, and for that, you also need to be in this heart coherent state where I train people's nervous system how to be in a heart coherent state, because that's where your heart qualities come back, which are calmness, empowerment, joy, creativity, the ability to respond, not react.
Mm.
Those are all the heart
Interesting.
qualities. And I train her to be in that conversation in her heart coherent state. So she doesn't have to think consciously about what to say, because that's what all coaches do. Oh, you should say this. And then they're mentally remembering that, not being in the
Yeah.
conversation, not coming off as naturally empowered. They come off as tight and tense because they're doing something that's not authentic. So I help them just feel it and the words will follow.
Mhm. Is
So
this the difference between responding and reacting?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the
Okay.
reaction is like, I'm afraid I will not be seen as worthy, which is my old pain. And we have, I think, the biggest sickness in the world, 90% of us, is some form of I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
All of us. So we
Mhm.
need to defy this demon. We need to know how to deal with it effectively. And just from a mental state or mantras or affirmations, it's not enough. It actually gets you even more stuck because you have to work with those feelings that are unprocessed. Once they are
Mhm.
processed, you will just feel lighter and there will be no alarm bells going off if somebody says, I want a piece of your land. You go like, oh, that's an interesting offer. I think I want a piece of yours.
Mm.
And you
Mm.
smile. It's, it's sometimes when in negotiations they say like, "Oh, Esther, that's like really expensive," and I would say something jokingly like, "Yeah, the first time I saw it, I was shocked too."
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then they
yeah, yeah.
usually say something like, "Yeah, but you're really good," and I said, "Thank you. Yes, I am."
Yeah? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like that. So, I wanna talk a little bit more about triggers, right? Because we all know the things that trigger us in the workplace. We all know this person who does this thing that just drives us crazy, and most of the time we're trying to pretend that it doesn't, but then maybe one day we're like, "Ah, I've had enough, I can't deal with it when you do X, Y, and Z." So, I think it's very clear with, well, talking to you that triggers can actually be very powerful because it seems like that's how we know where the work needs to be done.
Well said.
How
Perfect.
how do we unpack our triggers? How do we get to a point where we can look at our triggers objectively and then
Mhm.
unpack them and figure out what they're trying to tell us? How do we do that work?
In the Leadership of the Heart program, I have 8 steps to go through the triggers, and they'll give you an idea. So the first one is we go into a biographical meditation where we are making sure that you come into your subconscious state, because that's
Mm.
where it's like cleaning up the attic in your house. You haven't been there; there's a lot of shit there. And if I would ask you in a conscious state, you would just not remember what's in the attic. But when you're in your subconscious state, you will. And then we make like a chart where you see your positive impacts in life and your negative impacts in life. Well, the positive impacts give you a lot of information on are you doing enough of the things that give you energy? And
Mm.
the negative impacts is actually the juicy part because that's where your triggers come from. And then we make a map of you in the second step where you can see what in my body, and this is the part where we get out of our heads into our body and then into our hearts. So we get into our body, and there is always a pre signal. There is a
Mm.
little pre signal before you trigger. And we are using that. So there's a little gap between the moment that person says something and you're full on in your fight and flight and your adrenaline and cortisol mode,
Mm.
thinking only thoughts like, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him, or her, whatever. Before you're in that state, there are body signals, and I teach them
Mm.
so that you can put yourself down, deactivate your nervous system before it gets full blown out of proportion.
Mhm.
So then you will feel more regulated. So then we go into the steps of training your nervous system to be in a consistent heart coherent state or to know exactly when you're not. There are
Mm.
actually systems for it that you can put your finger or your ear into a little measuring device, and then the computer says you're in a heart coherent state. And everybody's asking me, why are you not selling these? I said, I don't want you to be dependent on a system. I don't want you to go, wait a minute in this meeting, let me just check it. Yep, I'm not in a heart coherent state. I'm out. You need to feel it, right? So
Yeah.
I'll make sure in the third step that you know when you're on and when you're off.
Mhm.
And then you get more impact because you now remain calm and powered in situations that are challenging with people who are challenging. So that, sets off people like, whoa, there's something really different with her. What's she
Mm.
on?
Can
And
I have
then
some?
yeah, exactly. When you're in that empowered state, that's the moment to ask, like, okay, who is my authentic self? Because I already looked at my triggers. So I know I'm not bullshitting myself like, oh, I want to be a director when it's basically just uh, your need to prove yourself to your dad, but it's not
Mm.
authentic from you. So
Mm.
we make sure that in this state, we go to your authentic self. So this is the fourth step. And we make a heart compass and we make a vision for the future, not a vision board. Don't believe in those.
Mm.
We'll ask the universe. And then the last step, which I always say, I'm still in it. It's called self love. And again, it's not wishy washy, it's very powerful and it needs
Yes.
constant management and maintenance. And it's
Yeah.
very much about acceptance of yourself. Also, accepting, like, ooh, this is like a very triggering situation for me. I must take some more self care
Mm.
to ride this wave very consciously so that I
Mhm.
won't repeat and that I'm really building myself. Because if I'm building myself, I'm building my company, I'm building my team.
Mhm.
And it's about following your flow because the more you know and the more you show up as your authentic self, the more you attract people that are on your vibe tribe. The more
Mhm.
situations just come to you. You don't have to work
Mhm.
so hard. So that's why there's this
Yeah.
difference between just from the head and with the heart. Because if you radiate the energy, it will come to you. And that's how
Mhm.
law of attraction works. That's how abundance works. So this is the state that you want to be in most of the time.
Let's talk about the vision boards. Why are you anti-vision board?
I have anti-vision boards. Ooh. Now, the reason is, I mean, we go a little bit pushing the envelope on spirituality, but let's say, I think most people agree that everything is energy, right?
Mhm.
So that means if everything is energy and energy could never die or be created, that means that everything you want is somehow already present. It's the same thing like if you're pregnant, you only see pregnant women. If you want a red Alfa Romeo, you only see red Alfa Romeo. So you're
Mhm.
shaping your world with how you feel and what you believe in. So everything is
Mhm.
energy. If everything is energy, everything is possible. Now, here you are. Let's say you play God. Okay, you're God for me, and I tell you, oh God, I really, really want a Kit Kat. I truly, I love Kit Kats. I want it. I can feel the desire for it. If I would have a Kit Kat, I would be really, really happy and fulfilled.
Mhm.
So I put on my vision board a Kit Kat. And then you're God and you're with your angels and you go like, she wants a Kit Kat. And you go like, well, you know what? Let's treat her. Um, two Kit Kats? Yeah, yeah, everybody, yeah, she'll be really happy. Yeah, two Kit Kats, yeah. So here you are, you're visioning and then thinking about it. I want Kit Kats, I want Kit Kats, I want Kit Kats. And there you go, you got two Kit Kats. Now you're shouting in the world, I got two Kit Kats. And at that moment, God is looking and is going like, I wanted to give you a chocolate factory, but you asked for Kit Kat. So,
Mm. Okay. I
so
like
here,
that.
if
Okay.
leadership of the heart can be found in only one sentence, and that is always follow your joy and interest. I tell these
Mm.
people at the beginning of our program, but I said you won't really understand what it means until we get to the end of it. It's basically if you just follow daily your breadcrumbs of joy and interest, the path of the
Mm.
heart will follow. If you're trying
Mm.
to vision board your way, it will come,
Mm.
but what are you missing out on? I
Yeah.
mean, I have had amazing shifts and turns in my life that I could have not vision boarded.
Mhm.
So why would I limit myself if everything
Mm.
is possible? I'm like, God, show me. Show me more.
Mhm.
I love this. Show me more.
Mm. Okay, you've converted me as
I
a
have converted
vision
you.
as a fan of vision boards to actually being like, yeah, I can't see the whole picture for myself. I'm just looking
Yeah,
at a small, tiny slice. So if I just direct my energy into what I want, the quantity or the opportunity of it, I've just got to believe that I might not even be able to see how many blessings or how much opportunity is in something. Okay,
exactly. And
I
you
like
might
that.
miss cues and signals on the way because you're focused
Yeah.
on the cat. And it's like, it works. It's not the
Mm,
problem because people say, yeah, but it works. I know it works. I just think
yeah.
you're missing out.
Yeah,
I
you
think
could
it could
be.
be
You could
even
very well
more
be.
magical if you just let go of the steering wheel.
Yeah.
That's in the self love, that's the acceptance and the trust of, okay, show me. When I
I love
left Coca
that.
Cola, when I quit my job, it was after the burnout. And I remind you, after the burnout, I worked a full year at Coca Cola. So it's not like
Oh,
I
wow.
left like, oh, it's scary. No, I went back, did my job, did an excellent job, to be honest. My energy was better. I was getting even more compliments. I was like, why is this happening? I asked my
Mm,
psychologist and I said, why am I even valued more than before? And he said, well, it's easy because now you are clearer in your boundaries, your yeses and your nos. You're focusing on the things that really make you come alive. And that brings in more people because they see your energy. So, yeah, of course you're thriving. And I'm like,
mm,
okay, so that shit works. But after a year, I could feel like, am I really feeling the fulfillment? Like, if I push this line till I'm 80 and then I look back, will I be proud of the fact that I sold sugar to a lot of people?
yeah.
And then I was like, no, I won't. Okay,
Mhm,
then I was doing all the self-help books and all the affirmation books, like, I want to know what I want, blah, 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 blah. It didn't help.
mm,
So at one point, I was sitting at home working. I was in a surrender state. That's the clue. I was like, okay, I don't know anymore. I don't want Coca Cola, but what do I want? And on TV, there was a biblical program. I'm not raised with the Bible. I'm also not against the Bible. It just happened to go from news to a biblical program. And usually it's on the mode that you white noise. And then
yeah.
one sentence just came like a razor blade, came through and pierced my ears. And it said, The most important sentence in the Bible is Moses walked and the sea parted. And I was like, why is that the most important? Isn't
Oh.
it Adam, Eve, or where it all started? So the interviewer asked, like, why is that the most important sentence? And this guy says, because it doesn't say the sea parted and Moses walked. It
Mm.
says Moses walked and the sea parted. And I was like, oh, I'm waiting for the sea to part so that I can see the path. But it's
Yeah.
me needing to make a step in a direction, and then free will of the universe will say, oh, is that what you want? Okay, we'll open up the doors for you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
then I had my epiphany moment at that moment, and I thought, like, okay, if I don't know where I'm going, leaving something is also taking a step in a direction away from something.
Mm.
So would then, like the Matrix, open up like 10,000 doors.
Mm-hmm.
And so it did. I left Coca-Cola, and money came my way, opportunities came my way, and I went on a world trip. And on that world trip, I found a lot of business people, and they talked to me and they said, it's life changing. And then I asked one person, and he says, yeah, this is the story of my life, Esther. Won a million, lost a million, and I just had a heart attack. I sat down with him, looked at his business, called him a few months later. I said, how's it going now? He says, finances are on top. I got my
Mm.
dream house, but more importantly, I'd like to thank you on behalf of my son. He says, thank you, Esther. I just got my father back. That was a
Oh.
moment. I got goosebumps,
Mm.
cried, and that was a voice in my head saying, and this is what you're going to do. And it's going to be called leadership of the heart. Now get your ass back to the Netherlands and start working. And I had zero experience. Anyway,
I love
short,
that.
short story.
I love that. Esther, before we wrap up, because I could talk to you all day, but we do have to wrap this up. But there is something that I want you to talk about that I saw, I think it was on your Instagram page. And it was very, very interesting because, again, it kind of goes counter all the things that we tend to hear. And you said, don't become a lion, become a hummingbird. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's
I
my favorite
love
one.
that.
Yeah,
Okay, so
me
can you
too.
explain that to us? Because we often think of like leadership and business like you're supposed to be the lion, you're supposed to,
Exactly.
have that kind of attitude. So why do you advocate for hummingbirds? Can you explain this
Yeah,
to
I
us?
love this. And it's a very beautiful, if you want to see it, go to my Instagram account, Esther van Toledo, and see it, because I also am very proud of how it looks. Anyway,
Mhm,
so the lion is basically, yeah, what everybody thinks of a leader, right? He's proud, he's powerful, he's strong. But that's actually where the transformation process starts, in my opinion.
mm,
When I start um, coaching people, they become lions, and they need to become lions because they need to break free from stuff, the old ways.
mm,
And they need to express themselves. They need to
mm,
stand up more for themselves. So it starts at the lion base. There's nothing wrong with it. But the lion basically says, like, I am strong, I'm king of the jungle, and I can beat anyone. But when a storm comes, the lion is actually the first to run away. So then it's better to become the eagle. And the eagle
mm,
says, I am wise and strong because I can observe. And if the
mm,
storm comes, I just fly higher. So when anything challenging comes, he keeps an overview. He's not in the
mm,
storm. He's
mm,
not affected by the storm because he goes higher than it and he looks at it. He's observing things. He's understanding the nature of his team. Like, so that is connected to that. And that's why this person is angry and that, or this is why my client, I see it. Now I can take a wise decision. So that's like
mm,
the second level. But now we
mhm.
come to the hummingbird. Why is the
Yeah.
hummingbird the ultimate stage? I mean, the hummingbird is the only animal that is unaffected by the storm. Why? It can hang straight midair in the midst of the most defying storm or deafening storm, and it will just still know its
Mm,
position because it's
mm,
so flexible and it
mm,
knows exactly where it wants to go. And it just has one focus. And then we connect it back to what I said earlier, is just finding nectar. It's just
mm,
looking to find its joy and interest. It's just looking for nectar. It's going from flower to flower to flower, has no other focus than that.
Mm-hmm.
Super flexible. Therefore, it's the ultimate sign of freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what we ultimately want. If you look at it, we want to be free from fears, free from hurts, free from stress. Ultimate freedom is the hummingbird. It flies, it has overview, it doesn't need to stress out, it doesn't go and hunt. It just looks for nectar. Where's my nectar? And
It's
that's
so
why it's
beautiful.
yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Esther. We'll have to wrap that up for today, but it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And I think we have to have you back. There's still loads we haven't unpacked. But how can people reach out to you? How can people find you? How can people get in touch with your work?
Please check my LinkedIn page. It's Esther van Toledo, and be very welcome to join me on Instagram. But mostly in English, I am on LinkedIn. My Instagram account is half Dutch, half English. You can also reach out to me via email, which is success@esthervantoledo.nl. I love questions. I love remarks. So hit me up. I always answer you, and I love to empower. And if there's any opportunity where I can give a masterclass, I'd love to fly into wherever you are. As you know, I'd love to travel.
Mhm.
So just hit me up.
Thank you so much, Esther. It's been such a pleasure to have you. And like I said, I could talk to you for hours, and hopefully, we get the opportunity to sit down again. And for our audience at home, please feel free to drop your comments in the comment section below. Do you have any follow up questions for Esther? What are your thoughts on some of the things we discussed, like being like a hummingbird and not like a lion, or no to the vision board, which I am now converted?
Yes.
So share your thoughts with us. Let us know what you'd like to see us cover on the channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow us on social media to keep up to date with all of our exciting developments. We also have an app that we've recently launched, which is all about females building community as expats and as digital nomads. So make sure you download our app, Her Expat Life. And we look forward to joining you on our community pages. And Esther, once again, thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you so much, Alexia. Hope to see you soon.